Now, the Delta variant has burst the travel bubble down under. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced the suspension of all quarantine-free travel from Australia, where lockdowns have failed to stop infections from rising in multiple states. In the last 24 hours, New South Wales has reported 136 new locally acquired cases. Victoria, that's Melbourne, announced 14, and South Australia announced one. About half of Australia's population of 13 million is under some form of lockdown and COVID lockdown. The CEO of KAYAK is Steve Hafner. He is with me now. Before we talk about the future and the trends for the future, I just need to know, from what you're seeing, the US is going gangbusters for travel at the moment, and those countries in Europe that have opened up seem to be doing well. What's the trend that you're seeing at the moment, Steve?
Yeah, Richard, thanks for having me on again. We see exactly the same thing. In countries where vaccination rates are high, and hospitalizations are down and government restrictions open up, people want to travel. So the demand bounces back very quickly. So you see that here domestically in the US, and you're seeing it now in Europe. You know, the big question mark, though, is for countries that don't have the benefit of high vaccination rates, like Australia and New Zealand, what they're going to do in the medium term to balance the health risks of their population with the economic rebound that they need.
And the hope had been that, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, summer 2021 would at least get off the ground and be a half-decent one. I don't think that's necessarily the case now.
I might quibble with that a little bit, Richard. I mean, I think if you see look at the U.S., you look at Western Europe, travel certainly is bouncing back. So over the past couple of weeks, the major U.S. airlines have reported results, and a couple of them even turned a profit, although it comes with a big asterisk of a few $1 billion of government aid. But if you look at our query volume, for example, at KAYAK, we're only down about 20% versus 2019 for domestic queries. And we're only down about 40% for international queries. So I think the market will come back. The question mark is, when does business travel come back? And when does international travel return to 2019 levels?
I want to turn to business travel because you've got this new KAYAK for Business, which you planned before the pandemic. Now, I've heard 1,001 numbers. I've talked to CEOs up and down. Nobody really knows the percentage of permanent loss of business travel. What do you think it is?
You know, my boss, who's the CEO of Booking Holdings, thinks it's permanently down. I'm a little bit more optimistic than that because I think business travel is a great thing to secure new relationships and new customers and accounts. So I think it will come back. And I also see a new trend, at least with the KAYAK users, of blending leisure travel with business. So now when you go on a trip, you stay an extra couple of days, you get to experience the city and the destination, and you can still do work because you know how to use Zoom these days. So I'm on the optimistic side that we will see a good rebound and it will get back to historical levels.
That's interesting. Because I won't say that's a contrarian view, but I would say that it's a more optimistic than the general consensus view at the moment. And for KAYAK, how important is the business traveller vis-a-vis leisure?
It's an important element, but it's not as important as it is to the airlines themselves. So at KAYAK, we think about 80% of our use is by business travelers. Certainly, that's the norm. That's not where it is today because most offices still aren't open. So people aren't traveling on planes to go visit offices that are open, obviously. And as you know from your trip to from Newark to London recently, it's no fun wearing a mask for 6 hours either. So, you know, I think the travel will return. The airline CEOs certainly are adding capacity. So you saw United order 270 new jets, and American said they're bringing back 1,500 pilots and 4,000 flight attendants. So I think the schedules will come back, offices will reopen, and business travel will return.
Now, Steve, I wanted to ask you, how many times over the years, with all the travel you've done, have you actually managed to practice pleasure and managed to have time off? No, look, don't look. Listen, I hold my hands up. I am guilty. I've never managed to do it. Maybe once. But perhaps you've hit on something when you say the Zoom aspect does mean you can have a bit of pleasure, continue to work and enjoy something. But it's going to be, I can't say I've ever been a great, I've managed to do it successfully. You?
Oh, I try to enjoy every destination I go to. You know, we've got 26 offices around the world at Kayak, and I pay a visit to them normally at least once a year. And yeah, they're in great cities, and you got to get out and see the city, Richard. So shame on you for not taking advantage of that. And it's funny when we just surveyed 1,400 people at Kayak in conjunction with YouGov. People want to combine business and leisure. And you know, I think as a corporate employee, you've got to make that available to your employees to go see the world.
I agree completely. Listen, I'll take that on board. I agree. Leisure is the way forward. I've just got to learn how to do it. Steve, it's always great to talk to you. Have a good summer if we don't speak before the end of the summer. Get out there and see some of it. Thank you, sir.